Do you want to wait a few more minutes until?
I would. Hi, Cheryl. You can unmute. I'll unmute you. Hi, Cheryl. How are you? Try to unmute her.
Hi there. Can you hear me okay?
How are you? Yeah.
Very good, but very crazy busy. So
you're going to school and running your business. Did I see that?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So there's Wendy and Kim on the call today so far.
Pardon me?
Wendy and Kim are on the call today so far. Can you see who's there or not? Do you have that?
I can. Yeah, and then Dan just joined. So there's myself, Suzanne, Kim, Wendy, and Dan. I'm just looking at the participant list right now.
Okay, cool. Very cool. We're just gonna wait just a second until we are expecting a number of people today.
The problem with the Eventbrite is you actually have to log into your account to get into this, and it's not logical how to do it. So I actually finding logging into the Eventbrite sessions a bit confusing. And every time I do it, it doesn't seem to be any easier for me, and I have to do it all over again.
It's not intuitive, right?
No, it's not. And I actually I've missed sessions because of that, because it just didn't make sense. And then I got busy and I kind of gave up. So I've actually missed sessions because of that.
So I think maybe a good learning out of that is to just embed into the reminder emails the link directly there, so people don't have to go looking for it.
Yeah. I have found that the Eventbrite links to get back into a seminar are confusing. I've done it for a couple of sessions now, and every time I come up against it, it's like, oh, okay, here I go again. Now I'm going to mute myself again because I'm doing a bit of walking around, and I'm going to be actually in my car in a bit. So I'm going to be listening, but I may not be able to participate the whole time.
No problem.
Thanks.
It is a webinar. So hi, Shazad, I see that you've just joined us. Hi, Dan. I'm going to start muting people so Kim can get ready. But as people are joining, we've just been kind of waiting. So Kim, it's your show. Tell me if you'd like to kick off. We might have some people joining in the next couple of minutes, but we don't want to keep everybody waiting. What do you think?
You betcha. That sounds great. So I may, it's interesting because I am admitting participants. I
can do that as well.
You can?
Yeah, you don't have to worry about
it. Oh, good. Okay, excellent then. That's excellent. All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We'll start with our third webinar of Reaching Your Everest, a sales journey. Do you want to jump in here, Suzanne? Do you want to start recording, Suzanne?
Thank you. We're recording. So if anybody misses any part or they'd like to share it, it's possible. Hamid, I'm just going to mute you. Hi, everybody. Just a moment. In case you're wondering why Canadian Advanced Technology Alliance is partnering with Kim Caves, an associate for this program. So what we do at CATA is we help create an ecosystem, a competitive environment for innovators to do business inside and outside of Canada. And our research indicates that although we have really world-class products, software, service developers in Canada, fantastic innovators, we're not getting a return of investment for the amount of energy and the caliber of the products that we're creating. One of the divides is actually in sales and business sophistication. So I know that just as when we try to tell people about our technology, sometimes it feels daunting. When we talk about sales, sometimes that feels foreign. So I met Kim in November in Calgary, and as soon as I met her, I knew she was a person that I really wanted to partner in this program with. And I'm not going to say too much more. You'll get a chance of figuring out why I tapped into Kim. I'll let her introduce herself. And today she lives in this space, and she's going to share some She's going to share some of her newfound intelligence in what the changes are in the buying teams and procurement today. I can't wait to find out. I've done a lot of sales in my lifetime. Every time with Kim, I learn something. I'm going to be quiet. This is Kim's program, and I'm going to hand the show over to Kim. Take it away, Kim.
Great. All right. Thanks so much, Suzanne. We've had so much fun doing these, and I really appreciate the opportunity to work with you as well. And it's been a fun journey to do this for sure. So I'm just going to jump right in here. Just a bit of background on myself. I've been an enterprise technology salesperson for decades, actually. And most recently, the last 5 years before I started my own business, I was in cybersecurity, which was really interesting. I worked for 4 different US manufacturers of cybersecurity software selling into the Canadian enterprise market. So I've worked with Canadian enterprise customers in the US and global. Some examples, most of the oil companies in Alberta and Houston, Texas included in that. BC Health, Alberta Health organizations, Great West Life as examples, the utility companies, NMAX, etc. I also worked with Verizon in the US. They were an account of mine for about 3 years. That was interesting. And even more interesting were all the trips to New York for those meetings. I worked with Singtel, who had an office in New York, and met them on a lot of international opportunities, locations, and CITIC Pacific, which was a big Chinese conglomerate based in Hong Kong. So what I'm doing now is I found that, you get a lot of adrenaline selling big deals. It's a lot of fun. I have had a fantastic career. But what I realize is I get as much adrenaline by selling to big clients as I do by helping others learn how to fish, big clients. So I'm just enjoying every moment that I work. I have the best boss I've ever had, and it gives me the freedom that I need. So we're working with technology teams, mostly small and medium businesses, probably established with about 500,000 in revenue and up, to build explosive growth and development by winning bigger deals. Taking you to new summits in your journey, reaching a pinnacle you never imagined. The program is for optimists, believers, visionaries, and doers. So happy to have you all here. Please do reach out if you have any questions. Please, in the chat window, both Suzanne and I are kind of keeping tabs on that, and we do want to make this as interactive as we can. So Reaching Your Everest, it's such a fantastic metaphor for a sales journey because it is a big deal. It's a big climb. Everest is the tallest mountain. The altitude and technical aspects are not to be underestimated. It requires purposeful training and intensive new habits to build so that you don't slip up. If you don't do your homework, it won't go well. It's also an extremely beautiful mountain, and mountaineers will always try to climb Everest to experience majesty, beauty, and adventure of our closest frontier to the universe. So something that very similarly, when you win a big deal, there are a lot of those feelings that exist in reaching something that is very large and complex. So the first 2 webinars that we covered, Webinar 1 was Base Camp, where we really talk about making sure that you understand the customer, knowing how to connect with them in a new environment, and really discovering what their newest problems are, because they're going to have a lot more new problems than they did before. So we really dug deep into that webinar. Webinar 2 is Mapping Your Route, picking a purposeful, strategic prospecting plan for your big clients, which will number anywhere from 5 to 8 ideally, and then really setting up a plan and monitoring your plan on a regular basis so that you can know what success looks like and build repeatable processes. Those are both on my website at kimcaves.com, and only till the end of August will those be posted along with the webinar from today. So just a little review, why hunt big deals? Well, so many of my clients have told me that they mostly react sheepishly to calls that they're getting in or things that people have seen and have some questions, but it's not purposeful and not as proactive as many would like. So this is an opportunity to be strategic. It's absolutely a team sport. There is no room for rock stars anymore. Winning big deals gives you lifetime value. It's certainty and predictability. It's absolutely better economics. And while, yes, going after a Costco or a Walmart or a Verizon might seem daunting, but it really is 80% mindset and 20% mechanics. Jamie Sharp, Sales for Life, said, in his experience, 45 days to win an SMB client average 500K, 90 days to win a big deal for 6 million. So you could do the math on that. So today we're going to do webinar 3, and we call it the Lhotse wall. And we do that because it's the most challenging part, or one of the most challenging parts of your journey. So the quote that I've included here: imagine climbing a fun icy slope on a sunny winter day. Only this one is 1,200 meters high. It's not a place to play. The dangerous part is to hang onto rope of dubious strength and to change carabiners between the ropes. You might feel not too clear in your head, especially upon coming down, but it's crucial to concentrate. Occasionally, you will hear a howling sound and watch rocks catapult down the wall, hoping they don't hit you. Blocks of ice sometimes come falling behind the climbers. Watch your head, lean on your legs, not the rope, and rest on the lines only occasionally. One slip and you are gone for higher up than you intended, really. So when you think about the buyer's journey, there couldn't be anything that describes understanding the buying team in a large organization. And I can tell you from my experience, the people that know how to understand the buyer and procurement best are going to be the winners. And one buyer can take you into a crevice and you will lose the deal. So it's very important to really understand what they're all about. So that's why I'm super excited about this presentation and what I can share. So let's set the stage. Every company has about 8 to 15 buyers, which is just incredible when you consider that there are people that you will meet along the way that may position themselves as being a single buyer with lots of influence. So I think that's really important to know. The buyer knows all about you before you get there. They've done their research online, offline. They've talked to their peers. I know that I worked with CNRL here in Calgary. And when I got there, they knew all about me because they'd called all my peers in the organization. They really did have a pretty good idea about what my company did, which was proof point and what I was all about, because they want to trust you as well. So keep that in mind. Half the buyers are challenged by contradictory information. So there's a lot of information out there about companies online, but a lot of it is contradictory. So this is creating some big challenges for your buyers. And there's obviously an increased focus on social sustainability initiatives, risk, continuity, business resiliency, and employee safety. These are the new concerns that exist in the world today because of pandemic, and what a huge interruption that has been. So buyer's consideration. So this is, I did some research on this, and this is really quite interesting in terms of what trends there are for buyers right now. So localization, imagine a world that was so globally focused for supply chain has now starting to look like localization. And why is that? Rising offshore costs, services delivery are much more. I mean, you can't ship services across the borders, but you can ship products, of course. But when you think the service market is about 80% of the USA GDP, then the focus really does need to be on how you can sell services. I would suspect that for Canada is pretty close to the same. I couldn't find that number. And think about tariffs. Think about the aluminum tariff and how much that impacts supply chain, and how businesses now, again, need to look at more local supply. Certainly, international relationships, look no further than Meng from Huawei, the CFO from Huawei, and the Chinese relationship that has been an outcome of that and other incidents with both Canada and the US with China. And when you think of the trade with China, think of the differences that your buyers are thinking about when they're thinking about what those relationships are doing to impact their businesses. Customer service, think about contact centers in the Philippines and India. Right now, we're hunkering back down to looking at home because the culture and the language similarities, but even more importantly, like-minded COVID-oriented scenarios are the same when it's local. So we're faced with the same scenarios when you have more of a local service organization. So think resilience. Think about trains, planes, and automobiles. I mean, obviously a big disruption there. And when you're thinking business resilience, you need to know that the transportation sector is going to be running as you expect. And think of the impact that we have seen recently. It's staggering, really. Automation, I mean, look at Amazon is looking at robotics and drones for delivering packages. Robotics is going to take over a lot of the service, not a lot, but a lot of people are thinking about robotics to automate various parts of their business from a service perspective. All in the spirit of a better customer experience. Regulations are changing in organizations. Again, we can see that every day. We need to understand what those are. I mean, there's regulations about people working at home and practices around employee safety. There's new processes for supply chain management. All of those things are becoming highly regulated, and we are going to become more of a governance economy than we were before, and we can all see that happening. I'd be curious to get some inputs from the group in terms of what are you seeing out there in your businesses in terms of changes in the trends of your buyers, and what are you seeing? Are they becoming more complex, less predictable? Are there multiple people you're dealing with? It would be good just to get a quick insight on your thoughts on that subject if you want to pop anything into the chat. Anybody out there? Want to throw something in? Okay, well, think about that, and we'll come back to that. This is one of my favorite slides I've ever seen from Gartner, and it basically talks about the buyer's journey. And so at the end of the day, think about a seller's journey. Very aligned, CRM. We're at stage 1, we had a meeting. At stage 2, we've got a meeting, and now we're going to do a proof of concept. Stage 3, we've met, presented to a C-level person. Whereas the buyer's journey is all over the map. There is nothing linear about a buyer's journey and how many things. And I love this slide because I could probably tell you a story around 80% of the points that are on here. I mean, purchasing rules overrule the group decision. Can you imagine? It happens all the time. I've been in organizations, particularly government, 1 or 2 oil companies where we got so far down the path, and then the procurement team jumps in and railroads everything, which is why I'm going to talk about it a lot. You can see all the web searches in here, supplier website visit. A lot of this is being done that you're not aware of, and they're learning all about you. And then deconflicting information within the buying group. Anyway, you can see that it is confusing, and again, not linear, and there are multiple people involved. All right, so next slide. So buying trends. So 85% of companies will now compete on the basis of customer experience. I love this. Look at the market cap for Amazon over the last month. They are providing a customer experience. Think about how many emails you're getting every day that are basically promoting a better customer experience with them, because those are the ones that are going to step above the crowd. Millennial decision makers. Increasingly, we're seeing them in organizations where they have a role in the buying process, and they really don't care if they see a rep. I mean, these are the people that are texting all the time. So if they can do as much of their research online, they will. So the rep buying process is diminishing for field sales, and the trend is that field inside salespeople will actually start to be the most skilled individuals and organizations compared to field salespeople. So there's a trend there, which is amazing. So for technology, which most of us are in, buyers have more complex challenges. Just a little story, I was at a rainforest meeting, and that's where a lot of entrepreneurs get together every Wednesday. And when you go, you talk about the skills you have, and I talked about being an enterprise salesperson. probably 8 people came up to me, and they were all data analytics companies. And I asked each one of them what they did that's different or specialized, and no one could really answer that question, but they certainly all wanted a meeting with the CIO over at Synovus. So technology has a real tough problem in terms of creating a differentiation and some clarity around what they do, because there are so many technology solutions that are emerging out there. So basically, the so what of all of this, today an education strategy is way better than a deal strategy. So what that means is your education strategy for how you're going to communicate the value of your product is more important than ever. Online, white papers, public relations, creating storytelling, blogs. YouTube is the #1 go-to place, apparently, for people doing searches. If you don't have a real solid YouTube or video presence, then you might be missing out on your education strategy. Super important. So just to demonstrate my point, here's a chart. Again, I love this chart from Gartner that just basically shows almost equally that buyers are looking to the website and the sales rep. So it's a 50-50 proposition between the two. So you could hone your selling skills incredibly well, but you need to have your information and marketing strategy well thought out. So there's 2 types of buyers. This is my theory. There's procurement, and then there's business buyers, just to make it simple. And in every big company, they might not call themselves procurement. Usually they do, purchasing, whatever. They are an emerging animal. And this is going to be one of the most important things you do, is to understand first and foremost who they are, what they care about, how are they aligning themselves to the business priorities of the organization. And the best way to find that out is talk to some of your closest business contacts in your prospect to find out what the organization's priorities are, and then use those as a lever to bridge a conversation into procurement, because you want to offer up how you and your solution can solve some of those business priorities. So typically procurement people have been concerned about cost. They're, cost containment. They want to avoid cost. They'll drag you down in negotiations and make you go through a lot of hoops before you can make any progress. They also looked at risk to the organization of working. Sometimes new technology companies, they want to make sure that you're solid, and that's a risk they want to assess. And governance, of course, they're rules people, and will often they're the ones that issue the RFPs. And oftentimes they're also ones that have vendor relationships as part of their goal, but the business buyer also wants to build those same vendor relationships. So sometimes it's a bit of tug of war. And I can honestly say in many of the organizations I worked with, sometimes procurement people and business buyers don't get along. Surprise, surprise. So procurement trends. So the trend now, again, the world is changing. Increased volatility, regulation, as I mentioned before, more tariffs and barriers. Your procurement people need to stay on top of that. Digital transformation. Procurement people are having to get dialed up very quickly on technology and digital transformation, and how it can impact not only their own business, but how their prospects or their vendors are looking to do the same, so that they can align themselves together on a path that most companies are going. For a procurement team, digital transformation is being used for spend analytics. Think of artificial intelligence and contract management and simplifying the process. I know that there's a lot of the contract management piece that's automated. You want to know what those are, and risks and modeling for trends that are going on in the procurement world and the buying world. Increased competitiveness. They want to understand not only between vendors, but their own company, and where the competitive nature of their own company is going, and how can they help the business meet the needs of that increased competitiveness. And procurement people really, like I say, there are a lot of rules people. Yes, they will go for a coffee with you, but sometimes they're not even allowed to do that. And their companies are asking them to deliver much more value from a strategic point of view beyond just the savings. So watch for those people and help them. If you have a solution that can help them be strategic. provide them with some insight about the industry and where things are going, because you are an expert in your industry and your solution, and try to educate the procurement team. So again, in a new landscape, they're going to be looking at innovation. They're going to be looking at ecosystem supplier relationships. So when I sold cybersecurity, one of the most challenging things for every company I worked with is trying to help them they all wanted to understand how all the tools they had in their system worked together, and where they could get rid of some of the tools if there was overlap. And that was something not many salespeople were able to explain, but something that every large company that I ever worked with was looking for some help with. So if you can understand that, you're going to really help out these people. Technology enhancements, of course, the world is basically the speed with which we will move to technology solutions, particularly artificial intelligence, the better. Leading on strategy, not metrics. The goal is speed up project delivery, which means less cost and certainly tighter budgets. So business buyers. So business buyers are those guys that work in the specific area. Again, I go back to the cybersecurity. They'll be the CISO, the Chief Information Security Officer, or the CIO. They represent the business needs and everyone on their team. And usually a business buyer conversation starts with a technical user. And you really want to start high in an organization to get kind of pushed to the right people that really are making decisions. But you'll meet several people that represent the business needs. So they're business stakeholders. And I call it cowboy style because I've met more buyers on the business side that just want to buy your solution tomorrow. And if they could, they would. Sometimes cost doesn't really matter. They just have done their homework and they know that your solution is the best. So I call that kind of cowboy. You know, it's kind of like the handshake deal. And they might be people that they've already worked with before and have a good track record with. So they don't want to go through process. And again, this sort of stimulates a little bit of that challenge between procurement and the buyers. A big one these days is technology champions and laggards. So your technology champions are the guys that are going to embrace new technology. But, you know, quite frankly, if you get a lot of people that have been in an organization for, say, over 20 years, which lots of big companies, particularly in some industries like mining and energy and retail, they're going to be laggards in technology or laggards in any kind of change because they're pretty happy with the status quo. I'm making a general statement, but this is kind of what I found, and don't want to upset the apple cart too much. Plus, they don't want to be exposed for making a big change. You know, they say nobody ever got fired for hiring IBM. Decisions have moved up the chain. So even though the C-suite is usually only a rubber stamp, they still are, but decisions are moving up the chain. And C-suite people very rarely get involved in buying discussions, but unless it's like a Microsoft multi-million-dollar contract. So remember, they're important because they will support you and sign the contract and know where the decisions are being made. Really try to dig deep. It's a very big part of your discovery process. So because we're doing a mountain theme, I decided that I would look at the various types of buyers and put them into categories. So the climbers are the ones that have their individual agendas, personal agendas, which are huge drivers for people. Humans do business with humans. We'll talk about that in a minute. And business agendas. Oxygen, those are the people that are feeding the organization, like the CTO, legal, regulatory, human resources, the CIO. They're the ones that are really driving the foundation of the whole business. You need to know what their business priorities are and get a bit of a flavor for the path and direction. And if you watch my discovery webinar, which is webinar 1, you will get a really good and deep understanding of how to set up a really good discovery tool and process. So mountaineers, they're the change agents. They're the fittest people. They know what's going on. They talk to people. They're trusted inside. The guides, those are the ones that, you know, will guide the organization. They all play a role, but there's lots of politics between them. So this might be the politics that exists between siloed departments, which is very common in large organizations. and everyone has a competing agenda. So you want to find that out. Sherpers are what we call kitchen table. These are the people you bring to the kitchen table. They're your closest allies. They know everything that's going on. They're business focused. They're trusted. And these are the people you really want to get on your side. And hurricanes, well, that's your enemy. That's the person who doesn't think there's a problem. So let's go through each one of these. Climbers. So think about personal agendas of people. Think about the organizations you're working with. Have you really thought through what they might be motivated by as you're having your discovery conversations with them? Recognition is a big one. Certainly right now, job certainty is something that they're going to be concerned about. And, you know, if they have families, it's going to be easy to figure out where they're driven. Money is a big driver. A lot of people are compensated with some kind of reward if they are saving money for an organization. So you want to know that and tailor your conversations to the people that shows that you understand their personal and business agenda. And naturally, business agenda is all on metrics, outcomes, and how the organization has decided to go through their transformation. I wish I could see everybody's faces, because this is where I'd like to see feedback or questions and know that I know you're all out there. So maybe I'll just pause for a minute just in case anyone wants to ask a question. How about some feedback? How is this resonating so far? Is this helpful?
I have like 100 questions. You just
okay.
make me think about more, and I can ask one of them now, or we can save it to the end. I wanted to just talk about the risk piece of the decision making. So nobody ever gets fired for hiring an IBM. And when you're a small company selling into big, sometimes small is seen as riskier. Do you have some tips on how to deal with that, and how do you nip these things sort of in the butt before you know they're a problem?
Yes, that's a great question. And just quickly, I'll just address that just quickly. But when you're small, what you need to do is track record, customer testimonials. Where's your solution worked? The more white papers that you're putting together to basically establish that you're an expert in your field. Sometimes large organizations will want to see your financials. You might want to take your CFO, your CEO, and your other senior folks in your company, but also in your extended and informal network. Again, we talk about that in webinar 1, to meetings to basically show where the financial stability is. Sometimes funding, I know a lot of companies, if you're in a different series of funding, to show them that so that there is some sustainability, a high level overview of your business plan, all of those sorts of things, because companies do like working with small companies because they're more nimble, more flexible, and often less cost. So that's kind of the balance. So that's the long and short of it.
Thank you.
Great. So let's go on to oxygen. So oxygen, again, these are the people that are foundational to any business that keep it running. And I called that oxygen. Know who they are and know what drives them, and know how much oxygen they have, which means how much of an influence will they have on the company's decision to buy from you. And you can ask your allies and your Sherpas those kinds of questions. Mountaineers, these are the change agents. Again, these are the fittest people. They always seem to manage to work their way up through an organization. They do adopt technology. Sometimes these are your engineers. They totally get why they need to minimize risk with your solution, say again on a cybersecurity. But oftentimes they position themselves as the lead decision maker. And again, I've been caught many times working with these people because they're so happy to meet with you all the time, that when they're actually only a very small part of the decision-making team is when you start to get those surprises. So certainly build them into your network, continue to work with them, continue to feed them data, and facts and stories to keep them well educated. They will help you, but don't rely on them entirely. So the guides, again, these are like the various business stakeholders across the organization, and there will be many. And as I said before, many times they will have a different view of the problem than another business unit. So that's the politics of the organization that you really need to understand and map out. We'll talk about that at the end of the presentation. You know, from your learnings, and as I mentioned in webinar 2, you want to document what you're learning, and you want to share it with the team on a regular basis, because the power of the whole team to really look at these observations that you're making will help everyone come up on your team with a strategy that's going to be a winning strategy. Guides, you know, there's a formal reporting structure, which is why you want to put together an org chart of the buying organization. But there's also informal. You might want to put dotted lines between the people that actually have influence on others, but not a formal reporting structure. I mean, think of the people that are, you know, maybe going on hikes together, or maybe it's the Friday after work drinking group. Those people are not necessarily all in a reporting organization, but certainly over a few beers, there's more than one decision and influential path that's been taken in those, especially if the vendor's buying. But nonetheless, the stakeholder understanding of the problem I mentioned, the cultural differences and cultural similarities in an organization, you want to really understand what those are. And not to underestimate outside influences, because a lot of these folks will have incumbents that they're already working with and people that they've really enjoyed having a relationship with. They're going to the hockey games. Those incumbents are going to have a very strong relationship with some of the people in the organization, but not all. And if there's some momentum for change, it's going to be really hard to bump those incumbents out when you're facing a guide. So you really want to understand who those players are and look where they're being influenced and who is influencing policy to upset an incumbent. And so policymakers, again, important to know who they are and how they're influenced. So Sherpas, these are my favorite people because they know everything about the mountain. They are the inside team. There's credibility there. They are consistently successful in their inner circle and surround themselves with people that they trust and know will get the job done. They are the ones that typically interpret the rules and policies and often influence or create them in the first place. They have a track record of high performance in the organization and always add business value. We all know who those people are. They're highly respected inside the organization. Those are the people you really want to get their support. You want to continuously feed them with information about your organization and also how your solution is meeting business outcomes. Helping them with that ecosystem knowledge that I talked about earlier, and prepare presentations for them. So don't leave it up to them to create information that they take to their C-level or their senior level directors that will make some decisions, have some influence. You want to just basically hand them the presentation that says how your solution meets their business outcomes or their business priorities, what those business outcomes are, and what the impacts are on other parts of that organization. So prepare them with the deck in their language around their business priorities that you've discovered through your own discovery process. So we all like the Sherpas, but we definitely don't like the hurricanes. These are the enemies. And I met with a client last week, and they had met with a prospect out in BC. And one of the people that they met with had a very significant role and title for the area of concern that this company provided a solution for. And she said, oh, we don't have a problem. So that could be a crevice that you might fall into. But remember, it's very rare that only one person has enough influence to kill a deal. Certainly she had a very powerful role and a very powerful position, but it was a very large organization, probably over 20,000 employees. So there's going to be some other people that are going to be stakeholders of the problem, and you want to find out who those are. But you don't want to ignore this person. You want to keep them in the loop in a very business and factual way, without really spending a lot of time trying to influence them, because chances are pretty good it'll be a waste of time. A lot of times they overstate their authority and influence too. And I'm betting that everyone on the call can think of somebody in their head that overstated their authority, and how frustrating that can be. And they can often be gatekeepers too. And we can talk in another webinar, we'll talk about gatekeepers and negotiation and closing strategies. So here's a summary chart. And it just basically talks about, again, their roles and then what your strategy should be. So for climbers, you want to know what their personal agendas are and leverage those when you can. For those that are not aligned, you want to neutralize them. For oxygen, you want to understand what their business priorities are, and you want to focus on conversations with them. If you are meeting with them that are relevant to their, you want to talk finance with the finance guy. You want to talk about artificial intelligence trends and digital transformation with the CIO. So that would be obvious, I'm sure. Mountaineers, you want to arm them with facts and data and proof points. They're the change agents. They're going to support you for sure, because they understand technology, particularly the engineers, the users, the technical team. They're the ones that'll be recommenders in your solution. The guides, you want to know the politics of an organization, map it out, informal and formal, understand that fully, and try to neutralize the ones that you are certain are not going to support your solution, and motivate them when you see an opportunity. Sherpas, again, closest allies, give them presentations to give to their senior executives so that they don't have to do all the work. And hurricanes, neutralize them, but feed them information and be nice. All right, so the buyer's journey is summary. Understand the role of procurement. I can't stress that enough. I've been caught so many times. Oil companies, a bank, the BC government, when I literally was down a path with our team, probably 6 months to a year into a very big deal. And all of a sudden this procurement team pops up because the business never wants to call them. And it's an avoidance strategy that never works. So I can't stress that enough. But now a lot of my best friends are procurement people, and it's been a great journey, because when you call them early, they really like that and think that you're a pretty savvy salesperson. Have a robust buyer contact plan. Build out your plan. Know who's who. Create a document that can be shared and provide inputs as you learn. Map all their profiles based on what I talked about. You can use those. There's also influencers, recommenders, adopters, laggards. There's a ton of terminology out there in the marketplace to identify your buying folks. But mine, maybe it'll help simplify it to 6 types. If you haven't had over 2 buyer meetings in a big company, you will not close that deal. So despite the amazing conversations you've had with 1 or 2 people, you will not close the deal unless you've had meetings with 5 to 10, even 15 people in a large company. Understand the new buying model post-COVID. It's changed dramatically. Supplier chain, focus on local, the customer experience. How can you frame your technology and your solution around a customer experience, knowing that that's a huge business driver? Increased governance all over the place. That includes tariffs, barriers, all those sorts of things. Intense focus on artificial intelligence and sustainability. Be aware of what the company's social programs are, how their employee safety initiatives and around remote working, all of those things. Understand them, speak to them, and understand where they're providing some challenges for that organization. And again, as I say in all my webinars, document the learnings as you have every conversation, share it with the team. And I say a CRM is great to put all of that information, but if you are a team that's all in one location, post it on a whiteboard. Because that way, when you're at the coffee cooler or you're walking through the boardroom, you can quickly huddle and see a map that's being built out to really understand what the status is of that journey. And it's a team sport. And the more the team gets involved, the more successful you will be, bar none. So that's the summary. So poll questions, and it looks like we're at 10 minutes to the hour. I'd love to hear from you in the chat. What would be the first step as a result of this information, and what is kind of an aha moment? Hoping that there were a few. If you could share what those might be, and then we'll go right into your questions.
Yeah, so you can find the chat on the bottom bar of your screen, and the first steps, aha moment. I have more questions than.
Okay, let's wait one more minute. Come on, one comment, two comments. What are people thinking? Okay, Suzanne, fire away with your questions.
Hi, yeah. So I was listening to the Matrix, the Buyer's Matrix, and in one of our earlier webinars, you worked on the sales team. And you know, I guess the magic is when you dovetail this, but an old problem that crops up is, you know, sometimes in my experience anyways, you know, sometimes when you're talking to more junior people, maybe they're not as empowered, you know, the risk to them is sticking their neck out, or maybe it's easier for them to do nothing at all. So I'm wondering, it's very hard to go up. So if I'm not getting any joy at that medium level person, it's very hard to then go up to the CEO, because they may feel that, you know, you've broken a trust with them. So how do you get around that? And there's another question that came in when you finished.
So that's the gatekeeper question?
Well, maybe not. Not necessarily, but you know, you start a relationship with somebody who's at maybe a medium level, and they're just kind of mediocre. I wouldn't say that they're a gatekeeper, but they may see the opportunity as work for them, where the CEO may see the opportunity of working with you as, hey, this is going to help my organization. And yeah, there's work to be done, but we have to do work.
For sure.
Have you ever run into that?
Oh, always. So this is where, you know, a personal agenda, and sometimes people just kind of want to be safe. They don't want to take a risk. But you know that there are others in the organization that do want to accept this risk, because the business will not progress unless you take the risk. So one of the lines I always used is like, hey, it's great to meet with you. You know, I understand where you're coming from, what your role is and all of that. I'd like to meet with so-and-so, because that's a different conversation about their priorities and how I can better understand where their thoughts are in terms of this overall problem that we all agree exists. So, you know, that's one way to do it. But you never want to underestimate the power of any individual, because you definitely, you know, it's like playing politics. You never want to make any enemies along the way, because you never know when they'll be in a position or promoted to a position to support you in other ways or going forward. So it's, you know, as a salesperson, it's really incumbent upon you to say, you know, I follow a sales process. That's what my job is to understand the organization. And that involves talking to a number of people in your company to really understand, so that I don't waste anybody's time.
Thanks. There's a question here from Shahzad.
Yeah.
You see that there? Will this mostly apply to bigger enterprises? What would be the size or revenue level of these companies?
Yeah, so great question, Shahzad, and appreciate that. This program is mostly for small to medium businesses who are between, say, 500,000 in revenue, so established already, to and above, who are looking to start to look at bigger deals to bring into their organization for predictability and economic value. So bigger enterprises, it depends what you see as a bigger enterprise in your space. You know, I mentioned the Costco, Walmart, that sort of thing. but sometimes they're companies that are very well established, that have lots of resources, that can bring you revenues, probably in the $1 to $10 million or 10 million and up, or sort of a couple of chunks. $1 to $10 million is kind of a medium-sized business. I would say that at enterprise level, in this particular example, might be 10 million and up, to 500 million or $1 billion. There's no reason Costco can't buy from you, or that the Canadian Defense team won't buy from you if you have the right solution. Because companies like that are looking sometimes to work with smaller organizations.
So we have another question here from Carlos, and Shazad, please let us know if that answered your question. Carlos, I'm trying to unmute everybody actually so they can ask their questions, but it's not working for me. I'm just playing with the new webinar version of Zoom. So Carlos' question, what do you do when procurement's outsourced to an external buying consortium? They usually understand part numbers and price and care not about value add. What is your question?
Yeah, that's a great question, Carlos. Thanks for asking that. It depends. Again, everything depends. I think how I would approach that, and I have faced companies that have outside procurement, and a great example is, the name escapes me. They're a large IT company, and the procurement and the services are both provided as an outsource. But I would probably go to my business buyers, the ones that have the most driving business need, and business stakeholders. I would ask them that question. How do you work with procurement? When do they enter the equation? How do I meet all of their rules? How do I know that they will accept conversations that we're having and moving forward? So I would get your biggest supporter, your Sherpa, to help you understand how this team works. And if they don't know, I would find somebody that interfaces with them. And it might be in the place that you least expect. Sometimes it'll be a contracted min person that works right inside the organization, and they work on the legal team or even on the IT team. So there'll be somebody that will have to face, there'll be somebody in the organization that's an employee that'll have to face these people. And if you can figure out who that is by having your conversations across the whole buying team, you should be able to get some information. Great question.
Okay, I think we're running into the last couple of minutes. How did you want to wrap up? You've got, I think, 5 minutes or so left there, Kim.
Yeah, great. Please, if you have any other questions, please reach out to me. I'm always happy to have dialogue with people around specific challenges. Would love your feedback too on the series. If you've seen the series, again, you can see the whole series now, only until the end of August on my website, but I would love to hear from you. And if you need some help in building out some of these plans or your buying strategy, that's what I do. I help companies build their strategies and their plans and tactics for winning big business deals.
So you have a couple of tools from a really good webinar from Dan Wasserman. Thanks, Dan. There you go, Kim.
Oh, good. Thanks, Dan.
One other thing, in webinars 1 and 2, you provided some tools. If people weren't part of those webinars, how can they get them from you?
So again, hello@kimcaves.com. If you send me an email, they're not posted on the web, on my website. So you have to reach out to me directly, and I may add you to my mailing list if you like, but happy to give you the tools. One is a discovery questionnaire where I provide something to get you going on the kinds of questions that are going to be important to know from your audience. And the other tool was a relationship plan tool, because relationships that you build in organizations, including the buyers, but also others in the organization, building out that relationship plan and having a bit of a strategy as you go to meet all the various players in a business pursuit.
Any other questions? It's awesome. Thanks, Cheryl.
Yeah, any other questions? I'd love to hear from you. I mean, is anybody else having the same pain that I've had with procurement teams, or maybe you haven't got to the point in the size of organization? I mean, again, remember, it's 80% mindset going after a big deal.
It's a bit of a puzzle.
Yeah, and it's exhilarating when you win a big deal. I can.
Okay, great. And webinar 4 will be coming up in any timeline for that?
Probably early September, probably when the kiddies get back into school or into their classroom, home classrooms. That's what we'll target, and we'll reach out. We're trying to figure out, again, if anybody wants to provide feedback on the next. I have several webinars in my program, and if you have any suggestions, for example, closing and negotiation would be one. The second one would be about risk, particularly on cybersecurity risk for small businesses. The next one is on ESG, not the next one, but one of them, environmental, social, and governance considerations, so that you are mapped into large companies where that seems to be a very big concern. Right now, there's marketing strategies and social media strategies. That would, just to name a few.
I think people are wrapping up.
Okay.
And on their way. Okay. Hey, Carlos, thumbs up from Carlos. Thanks.
Attending again, reach out to me. I'd love to hear from you.
Okay. Cheers.
So much.
Thanks so much, Kara. Thanks, Doug, for coming. Thanks, Carlos, Shazad, Cheryl. Really awesome to see you, Doug, Jason, Wendy. Very nice to hear your voice again. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Have a great rest of the week. Thank you, Kim. You're just a star.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Cheers.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Hi.
Hey.
Hi, we still have Cheryl with us. I couldn't, I guess if you start the call and mute everybody, you can't unmute them. I really tried.
Really?
I think,
okay.
I think especially at the questions part, it would have been nice to, you know.
Get the voice.
Well, yeah, because sometimes the context doesn't come over text, right, of the question.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. For sure. Yeah, no, yeah, it was good. Some nice feedback there. Some good questions, really good questions. So yeah, wrap up 3. Wow, we're just flying along here.
The apps aren't really, oh, there we go. I just, I don't know if Cheryl left or I kicked her out, but I'm just playing with that. I'm playing with the tools, right?
Yeah.
Some of them are working and some of them aren't, but you want to try to see how we can do poll. Add a question. So it looks like we do this on the row while we're rolling. So what question would you like to ask? How about next session? And we can go answer 1 is marketing.
Yeah, here, I think.
What was the other?
Say marketing, closing deals, risk.
Closing deals. I think that's always a sharp one. People.
Yes.
Right? And that's often a fear thing. Closing deals is so much fun. So we're okay. So I'm saving it.
I think you have to share it. Well, I think I can put it as part of my presentation.
I don't know how it works. I'm just trying to add. It says I have not added. Enter title for this poll. Next steps. Add your questions. What's next? Multiple choice. Okay. Multiple choice is.
Oh, it's giving you all those options.
Social. I should be sharing screen here with you, because can you see as the co-host, did anything change for you in your dashboard in the bottom?
Yes, I was able to remote, and I wanted to practice because I actually do have a remote, because then I can take my glasses off and stand a little further back, but I didn't. So it did. It was remote and something else, but
okay, so I've got the poll. So.
Oh, are you going to stop recording?
Yeah, I did. Did I?
Oh,
No,
okay.
the recording.